Welcome to our Unsolved Crime segment. Each and every week at this time, we have the Jane Wayne of Justice, who joins me, Susan Murphy-Milano, who's a crime blogger. She hosts her own show. She's a survivor. Her dad murdered her mom and was possibly going to kill her. She survived. Barely. And she's helped people for years and years and years deal with all kinds of abuse and solve cold cases. And she actually cares. She's not trying to audition for American Idol. Susan Murphy-Milano. Welcome back, Susan. And we have a guest, Joe Hosey, who's joined us, who's an amazing person. And Joe has authored a book on the very a famous case some of you have heard about, the Drew Peterson case. Remember when that hit the news? Oh my word, it was like a nightmare on Elm Street. You'd hear in the news and it'd be one wife and then another wife and you're going, huh? What was he? Dadgum Elizabeth Taylor or something? I mean, how many wives disappeared with this dude? But anyway, he's in jail waiting trial and we'll find out all about the women, the victims, the disappearances, and what's going on with Drew Peterson. Joe Hosey has written a book about it. Joe, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing just great with my bad self. Susan, it's wonderful to have you too. There's so many cases we've talked about, but Drew Peterson, what a piece of work that guy is. Joe, walk us through. You wrote a book about the whole thing, very factual. Tell us who Drew Peterson was and is, and how many women were mysteriously involved with him. I mean, because when we heard about it, some people don't quite remember Stacey Peterson. They don't remember all the women. We know some disappeared. It seemed like one was in a bathtub, magically dead, and you're going, Another one was gone. Hello?
Right.
And so he's waiting trial on something, but it seems like he should be waiting trial on the rest of the country wanting to skewer him. I mean, what's the deal with this dude?
Drew Peterson was a nobody. He was a small-town suburban cop, but kind of a big fish in a small pond in Bolingbrook here outside Chicago. He has been married 4 times. His second wife claims she was abused by him. His third wife as well, and now she's dead. They found her dead in her bathtub. The state police completely botched the case. They insisted she died in an accidental bathtub mishap. And
I remember that one. Joe, help me with that one a bit. Accidental bathtub mishap. As I recall, there wasn't water in the bathtub, was there?
No, they say it drained out, and it very well might have. But, I mean, the family was clamoring, saying that Kathleen Savio, this third wife, was if she had predicted that she would be killed by Drew, she sent letters to prosecutors in the county where she lived, in Will County outside Chicago, saying she feared her husband would kill her, that no one would listen to this woman. Then she does turn up dead under mysterious circumstances, and the state police insisted that it was an accident. It wouldn't listen to her family, refused to listen to her family. And Kathleen Savio was quickly forgotten.
Now
the next wife, Stacey Peterson, vanished mysteriously.
Okay, so Kathleen is the woman that ended up in the tub.
Yes.
And magically the water was out. Were there bruises on her body? What was she supposed to have done? Someone came and bonked her. She drowned? I don't get it.
The police think that she stepped into the tub, slipped, and hit her head and drowned.
Oh, please.
I know.
She had bruises all over her body. My God.
I know. At the time, I couldn't believe that they
no,
were
she
sticking
did.
to this theory.
She had bruises.
Ridiculous.
She had bruises all over her body, Joe.
Yes.
She was bruised. Yes, she was bruised, and she was going through a really acrimonious divorce with Drew Peterson at the time. There were numerous calls to police. There were, violence. He had taken up with the fourth wife by then, Stacey Peterson, even though they weren't fully divorced. He was
Joe, you are giving me a
headache.
headache. This guy, I cannot even believe this. And then the police, she had bruises all over her body, and she got that while falling into the tub. Maybe she was, had epilepsy or something and had to contort while she fell. Honest to Pete, we'll be back. Oh, my goodness gracious. We're talking about Drew Peterson, the infamous Drew Peterson, who
No, I have a name for him.
What's his?
Can I say it on the air?
Please, yes. Go ahead.
It's Dickless Wonder. That's what I've called him since day one.
Well, I'll tell you something.
That's all he is.
He's a cop, as you were telling us who he was and is. He was really kind of a Chicago area cop, not a big fancy one, but apparently he was married 4 times. And the first wife divorced him and survived. The second wife, did both the 2 first wives live?
They lived, yes.
Okay, they divorced.
No, the second wife, barely, Vicky Conley, barely survived a fatal car accident, which the passenger is killed, and the car was tampered with.
Okay, so that was a mystery moment. And then we had the magical, sad but magical death of Kathleen Savio in the tub. You would think if she had slipped in the tub, as the police investigation was saying, that she slipped in the tub and the water just all drained out. Okay, fine. How come she had bruises all over her body? Wouldn't she have had a bruise where she hit her head or something that would have killed her?
That, and she said this was going to happen to her. Like Susan said,
Yeah.
It was writing. She sent a letter to a prosecutor talking how she feared she would be killed by Drew Peterson.
But the prosecutor is in bed at the time, Tomzak, with Peterson. So that not the current administration now, but the person that's there has a lot to lose because Drew has something allegedly over his head. So he doesn't do crap.
Okay, so he's been sitting in jail for how long now, Joe?
Since May 2009, so a year and a half.
So he's been sitting there a year and a half waiting.
Almost two years, yeah, waiting.
And what have they actually charged him with?
Murder, the murder of Kathleen Savio, but not the murder of Stacey Peterson, whose body is, or who has to be found yet. They haven't.
Okay, so they are so the prosecutors haven't bought the line that she fell and hit her head in the tub.
Well, as Susan said, it's a new administration, and now none of this would have happened if the 4th wife, who's missing, still didn't disappear. For 3.5 years, they just considered Savio's death accidental. Now the 4th wife vanishes. All of a sudden, like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we should look at the 3rd wife's case again.
So they exhume her body.
Yep.
Okay, so did they have, Joe, did they have enough evidence? Did they have the facts, or did they screw it up enough that this guy's going to walk?
I don't know. Susan and I have talked about this, and I really think that the Stacey Peterson case, they have much more evidence. Even though they don't have a body, they have a lot more evidence in the Stacey Peterson case than they do in the Kathleen Savio case, in large part because the state police didn't take any evidence. They came in, decided it was an accident immediately, didn't process the scene, didn't take fingerprints, didn't look for physical evidence, and they didn't get around to actually looking at the case until 3.5 years later. And by that time, they had to exhume the body, which I'm sure there's no physical evidence on that body that after being in the grave for 3.5 years. So I think it's going to be a challenging case for the state.
Now, Joe, what was the psychology and the cult of popularity around him with the other police officers then, 3.5 years ago? Was he popular? Was he protected? Or were they suspicious? I mean, was he kind of a lone wolf, or did he have a cult of personality around him?
He's a garrulous guy, one of the guys. He calls himself what he always calls himself, and the people around him always call him as a jokester. He's a practical joker. He's, Drew Peterson. And actually, I'm sure, despite all the attention, despite the news, the TV news, Susan, my book, everything, I'm sure he never would have been arrested if he had just kept his mouth shut. But he and his knucklehead lawyer insisted on going on television. They were trying to sell stories and photographs. They were going to People magazine, the Today Show constantly. I mean, it was the worst legal advice anyone could have ever received, and that's why Drew Peterson's in jail right now, because of his attorney pushing him into the limelight.
Okay, so why did they have a stronger case regarding Stacey Peterson when there's no body? What did they have?
They actually investigated it after it happened. They have statements. They
have a timeline. They have more substantive stuff.
They have Drew on television making conflicting, contradictory statements about what he was doing, where he was, the phone calls. They have first-hand evidence from his stepbrother, Tom Morphy, who said he helped Drew carry Stacey's body out to a sport utility vehicle right after she went missing. She was in a blue barrel, according to the stepbrother, Tom Morphy. Very damaging evidence, very, very damaging evidence. And again, Drew and his attorney tried to discredit Tom, saying that, he made it up. He's a drug addict, and he has mental problems, and he makes up stories. But if you talk to Tom Morphy, or if you see him testify, which he did during a hearsay hearing, he's very credible, very believable. There's no reason he would make this up. I mean, to make this up, he's making himself out to be an accessory at a homicide.
Well, yeah,
it's a homicide. He has nothing to gain by making any of this up.
No, I can't even imagine that. And so he has said that he's put on an affidavit. He's actually made it official that Drew told him that he put the body in something.
No, he says he helped Drew carry it out of the house.
Oh, it's even worse.
Yeah, he said he carried a blue barrel out of Drew's house. He also says that Drew told him he was going to kill Stacy. He said, I think one of his statements he says Drew made to him, they were alone, and Drew said, "Do you love me?" And Tom said, "Yes, I do." He's like, "Would you love me if I was going to kill someone?" He's like, would you help me kill someone? He's like, "No, I couldn't help you. You love me enough to help me kill someone." And Tom said, "No, I don't love you that much." He's like, "Would you love me if you knew I killed someone?" And Tom to that said, "Drew, I do love you, and we already thought you killed Kathleen." Then he enlisted his help to scout out storage lockers to hide Stacy's body in, according to Morphy. He enlisted Morphy to help him try to frame one of Stacy's classmates at Joliet Junior College, who she was taking nursing classes, by orchestrating cell phone signals that could be traced back to this guy's house, or the area around this guy's house. And Tom Morphy says he also helped Drew carry the body out of the house to a Denali, a Yukon Denali, and Drew drove off with.
So he knew it was a body he was carrying out of the house. It wasn't just.
He's sure it was Stacy's body. That's what he says. Yes.
Oh my word. So where was he saying that the body got put, though? From there, he didn't know where the body went?
He doesn't know where it went from there, no. But supposedly they have cell phone signals. Drew answered the phone when Stacy's sister called him, and they put him by a canal nearby his house where the police did drag that canal looking for the body, but it's like looking for a needle in a haystack there.
So they have reopened the Kathleen Savio case, and they're trying to pin both those on him, or is this the arrest right now? The trial coming up is only about Stacy, or no?
And that's why the hearsay information is so important. That means if I say to you or somebody else, he's going to kill me, it doesn't enter into it. That's why the evidentiary abuse affidavit removes hearsay, which is Crawford versus Washington, which says that the person that allegedly killed the person or that's missing has the right to face their accuser. And that's what's wrong with all of these cases. You've got these cases similar all across the country when these women disappear and nobody can find them, but yet you don't have enough sometimes to make the arrest.
Right.
So where is it going from here? We're in the waiting game as they're doing more investigation. They're just waiting trial. Do they have a date set?
No, they don't, because they're appealing a decision made on what hearsay evidence was. The prosecution's appealing a decision on what hearsay evidence is going to be allowed at Drew's murder trial. So, and that appellate decision should be coming back any day now. People involved have thought it was going to come back already, and it hasn't. So we're all just kind of waiting on that to come back. After that, there's a possibility it could be whoever loses that appeal could appeal it up to a higher court, to the state Supreme Court. So I don't know. People I talk to tell me not to expect a trial at least until the fall. Is that true? I don't know. But I mean, he was arrested in May 2009. We're almost in May 2011.
So does he have a big fancy attorney and a bunch of people, a big team
No,
helping him?
No, he's kind of a low-level guy from Chicago who's been working the case. And since then, he's gone through a few other attorneys because the guy he's got, Joel Brodsky's been driving everyone away from the case. Now he's got about 5 or 6 other attorneys who are supposedly involved.
Greenberg. He's got Greenberg. And Greenberg I know personally. He's very good, Greenberg.
How invested is he in he did the appellate argument, but, how much... But
he's half pregnant. He came out on Fox News when this had all come down, and he basically said, this guy is going to fry, and then all of a sudden now he's now on the defense team. It's a double-edged tongue there.
Yes. Well, he's a lawyer,
Yeah, but I actually give him more credit. I thought I did. I have a lot of respect for him. And again, just because I've seen him in action, I was floored because he had already done a bunch of stuff with Fox News saying, this guy, he needs to fry, and was making a joke of it. And then 6 months later, Laurie, you see him representing this guy. So where is his moral compass as a lawyer, as a defense attorney? Is it money? Is it just press? You've got Mark Garagos, who did Scott Peterson trial, and all it's about is, if you go on the Internet, who murdered his wife Lacey, that is it a Google thing? Is it, my name up in lights with the person that just because I was part of the trial? Is that what this drives these people to take these cases? Or is it really about the love of the law and doing correct defense?
No,
I'm not sure.
I think that they're going to, some years from now, even if Drew's convicted or not, they're like, I was the guy who did the Peterson case. There's no money to be made on this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they might win. Like as we said before, there's a lack of physical evidence in the Savio case. There's a lot more evidence in the Stacey case, but they don't have a body. Maybe they'll indict him on that sometime down the road without a body. I would hope they would.
You just had the Venus Stewart case, no body. In Michigan 2 weeks ago, Doug Stewart was convicted without a body because, in my opinion, they had almost enough, if not nearly enough, same amount as they do now in Stacey's case. But they don't want to get him into double jeopardy, so they only want to do one case at a time, which is very smart on the State's Attorney Glasgow's position. I mean, it is.
I agree with you completely.
So they're going to keep it just Kathleen Savio this time.
Which is what they should do.
And see if they can convict him on that. But they think they've got enough on the Kathleen case?
They do. They're confident. I don't know if I am. What do you think, Susan?
I do. I do. Only because Glasgow wouldn't stick out his neck. The State's Attorney wouldn't go this far if he didn't have an ace in his hand. That's the kind of guy he is. He's been around a long time. He's very clever, but he knows the law. He doesn't do anything without thoroughly thinking about this. And he's the one that's going to be trying this case, which, again, is a different kind of a move.
So what are some of the facts in the case that give them an idea that they've got a good case? Is it that dude you were saying, Joe, that admitted that Drew told him, that he carried the body out with him? Is that the guy?
That's the Stacey case, but they have a lot of people, and again, this all hinges on the hearsay, who Kathleen expressed her fears that she would be killed. Now they also have people who say that Stacey Peterson, the fourth wife, told them very incriminating things about the night Kathleen died, such as Drew disappearing from the house at the middle of the night and returning all in black with a bag full of Kathleen's clothes. She told her minister, her preacher, that in no uncertain terms that Drew killed Kathleen. There's a divorce attorney who she approached about...
Harry Smith. He represents both women. Kathleen is the one he goes to for a divorce. He's in court, hears the news about Stacey, and runs out. Stacey goes to him 3 days before she vanishes. Yep. She goes to the same divorce attorney for a consultation.
Yep. And she told some very incriminating things to Harry Smith as well. I mean, you have people lining up to say, Drew Peterson killed Kathleen Savio. Now, how much of that stuff gets in as hearsay, that remains to be seen.
Well, see, I hadn't realized the connection with Kathleen and Stacey Peterson. I didn't know they knew each other.
Oh, yeah. Sure. There was a lot of bad blood there.
But Laura, Stacey, when Drew starts dating her, she's a child, so he grooms this kid. She's 15 years old. 15. Oh, he's a 40-something-year-old man.
He's 30 years older than her, yeah.
30 years older.
Which is creepy in itself and criminal as far as I'm concerned. He was not in a position of authority, which was why it was legal for him to be having sex with a girl. But I don't know how they consider him not to be in a position of authority when he's a sergeant with the police department, where, I don't know. I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense why at the time he wasn't charged with rape. Why?
Right.
Because he was a cop?
Okay, so Stacey's marriage was going down the tubes, and she knew about the affair with Kathleen, but she suspected...
No. Kathleen was already dead. Or, I'm sorry, when Kathleen was alive, Kathleen found out about the affair that Stacey and Drew had. Drew also...
okay. So she found out about Stacey's, but there's so many affairs. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness gracious. Talking with journalist and author Joe Hosey, and he's written a book on what is going on with the Drew Peterson case and the victims, Kathleen Savio and Stacey Peterson. The first two wives are amazingly alive, although beaten up and going through hell. They survived the divorce. Maybe that was much. Maybe he didn't want them to, but they did. So he's awaiting trial. He's been in jail for a year and a half, and he seems to go after young chicks, doesn't he, Joe and Susan? I mean, this guy's a young chick kind of guy.
Yeah, young chicks with limited means and intelligence, I would have think. I mean, even when he was under investigation for that lengthy investigation, it took the state police to finally arrest him in May '09. After Stacy disappeared in 2007. He had a girl briefly moved in with him. She was
Christina Range, 23 years old, had a couple kids herself, and she was all over him. And now guess who she's represented by? Gloria Allred.
Oh.
I mean, this is a Jerry Springer tragedy in movements.
So is she still supportive of him or in love with him, or is she turned on him now?
She had been visiting him in jail. I don't think she is any longer. I think she finally stopped. I got to think though. Drew can think what he wants about himself and his romancing the ladies, but she had 2 kids, no child support coming in. She's a waitress at a Fridays or something.
Yeah.
She saw Drew as a roof and a car and a meal ticket, kind of like Stacy did, I'm sure. When she was a 17-year-old on her own, working overnights in a hotel in Bolingbrook with really.
But I think with Stacy it was different. Like I said, he knew her. He'd go in and see her, and here she is, a kid, and he treated her like a queen. And I think that was about it, because if people, from everybody that I've spoken to, and this is the last couple of years, who would have no reason to say anything about her, good or bad to me, they've all said the same thing. She had the warmest, kindest heart, Stacy did. She brought the family together so much after Kathleen's death. And first and foremost, Stacy Peterson is still missing, and she needs to be found.
Well, what was the background that you know of, Susan and Joe, with Stacy? Had she reported to anyone abuse? Was she wanting to get away from him at some point, or was she touch and feel and close to him?
Her friend and neighbor, Sharon Bachowski, said Stacy wanted out. She did visit a divorce lawyer to get rid of that, Harry Smith, saying she wanted to divorce Drew. She wanted to take her kids with her. But, I mean, she's got to see how his 2 of his previous 3 divorces went. The one with Savio was terrible, even before she was killed. And the one with
Connolly.
Vicky wasn't good either. It was pretty rough, too. So, I mean, she had to know what she was in for. She did know what she was in for. Sharon tells horror stories about what's going on with Drew and Stacy.
So what was the condition of her disappearance? She just drove off and disappeared, or disappeared out of the house? Or what actually happened that day?
Well, Tom Morphy says he carried her out in a barrel, a blue plastic barrel. But Drew says that he woke up. He told 2 different stories that actually contradicted each other. The first one that he told me within a couple days after Stacy vanished was that he got home from work he left work early, got home about, I think he said 5 in the morning, went to bed. He remembers Stacy waking him up to tell him that she was going to go to a neighboring town to repaint the house her brother was renting, because he went back to prison. They revoked his parole. He's a pedophile, or a pederast, I guess you would call it. Anyway, so he went back to sleep. Next thing he knows, he's woken up by the children. Stacy's gone all day. He hasn't heard from her. Next thing he knows, she's calling, saying, I'm leaving you for another man. I've left our car at the town airport. I'm going to a Caribbean island. And then he realizes she stole her bikini and title to his car for some reason, and $25,000 that he had in a safe. And that's his story, and he was kind of sticking to it, even though he kind of changed it up a little bit, too, as time went on.
But she would never leave. This woman, and nor would any other mother, up and leave their children. It's not possible.
Well, the whole story is ridiculous, Susan. I mean, it's silly. It's insulting that you would think someone would believe this.
Now, has anybody kept track of what happened to his first 2 marriages? What happened to them? I mean, they must be thanking God in heaven that they're alive.
Well, the first marriage, I don't think there's even any allegations of domestic abuse in the first marriage. They got married out of high school. He was cheating on her. They got divorced. They had 2 children, one of whom just is a cop himself and just got fired because of his father dragged him into this whole mess with Stacy. Had him hiding guns from the state police for him. So he's out of a job right now. The other son doesn't speak to him, hasn't in years. The second wife, Vicky, was the first one to say there was domestic violence, to my knowledge, and that's the second wife. And of course, Kathleen was trying to tell anybody who would listen, or the police wouldn't. And now Stacy, and there was, Stacy is not here now; she's missing. But her family has said that members of her family said Drew abused her as well.
So, does anybody, looking at all the possibilities of what could have happened, is there any possibility anywhere, anyhow, that she just disappeared and is still alive?
No, she didn't.
Okay.
She's been killed, period. I mean, there is, from the very beginning, I mean, this case, I had said that Peterson had served the country burnt toast for breakfast when this happened. His pattern of conduct in this case is all the way through his marriages, all the way through what happens. And you wouldn't think that he would harm a hair on her head. And that's initially, when I had seen the case, I thought, how stupid of you to do this. And he got away with it once. He got, self-confident enough to think he could do it again. And that's what that's about. Like, catch me if you can, people.
Yeah.
You're not going to find the body in this one. I got cleared of the other one. She's young enough that I'm going to make it look XYZ. But he didn't know in some ways where she went, but he was also tracking her. He was tracking her cell phone. After her meeting with Pastor Neil Shorey, again, not that long after she left, he calls the office of the pastor right after Stacy leaves and says, "How you doing?" As if to say, "I know she was there. I've caught you," kind of thing. And he's gone as far as accuse Stacy of being with the pastor, which is not true. All of these things, why would you need to track somebody and follow them? Stacy then becomes a liability to him. She's not listening to him anymore. So
what you just said, Susan, about him saying that Pastor Neil Shorey was with Stacy. I mean, that's Brodsky, the attorney. I say that loosely. It's his response to everything. Anybody who's going to detract her, they attack. They attack Tom Morphy. They attack Sharon Bajkowski. Yeah. They attack her family, Stacy's family. They attack Kathleen's family. They attack this minister who's not hurt anybody. He's a nice guy. He doesn't bother anyone. But they're saying that he and Stacy are,
But Brodsky, I said his name. I'm allergic to it. But he also had the SWAT team visit him. He has had domestic violence in his past. So I guess birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, tell the folks the name of your book, Joe, and where they can get their hands on it, please.
Fatal Vows. It's been out since September 2008, so I think you're probably going to have to go to BarnesandNoble.com at this point to get it. It's been out for a while. Hopefully they'll have the movie out on Lifetime within the year. I'm hoping. Fingers crossed on that. And it's a good read. People should read it because it really gets you up to speed on what this case is about, what's going on. The hearsay hearing they did hold last year was pretty much a lot of the people I had talked to for the book testified in that and validated pretty much everything I said, just about everything I said in that book. So it's a good read. You should check it out. Okay,
Joe, and then I want to hear Susan's comments. Was Drew Peterson, what kind of a person was he and is he? Did he morph into some sort of a sociopath or narcissistic guy that just felt like he could break the rules? Was he always bad and then just had a chance to display it? Or what kind of a person was he and would do something like this?
I think he doesn't feel the rules apply to him, and they didn't for a long time. He was a big shot in a small town. He's a police sergeant in a tiny town where he could pretty much do what he wanted to do, and he kept doing what he wanted to do. And is he a psychopath? I don't know. I can't.
Well, what was the deal with the women? He just had wandering eyes, and he didn't seem to be able to commit to women. He'd always have affairs, it seems like, and tank the relationship.
He seems to like to marry them, too, though.
Yeah, he likes to marry him, has an affair, and then to marry him, and then the previous wife is psychotic or on heroin. Lord. Well, Susan, you've seen this kind of profile again and again and again. Is he a typical sociopath who just appears ever so charming?
He is, but he's got a gun and a badge, which makes him more dangerous. So his tactics that he learned in the academy are carried over into the home. Plus, think about it for a minute, that when officers respond, he is in charge of those officers who respond. So that's the sergeant's house. How embarrassing is it? Okay, guys, just sit out in front. Don't pay no attention to it. Just sit out in front. If she calls, just sit out in front. But they're not going to respond. And at one point, Kathleen is arrested.
Yep.
So his pattern of behavior, his pattern of conduct, and the way that he behaves, he takes this.
She was acquitted in court of those charges and had her record expunged because it was ridiculous when she was arrested. We should mention that too, though.
It was.
Yeah.
And what she does, there are accounts from, here her family does.
30.
While she's still alive for a number of years, they carry the documents that are no longer in certain files in storage at the state's attorney's office. They carry all the letters, her journals, everything is carried. So when Stacy goes missing, the family hands it over, which is very important because the file's not there after Stacy goes missing.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. I'm talking to Joe Hosey, author and journalist, who's an expert in the whole nightmare of Drew Peterson. His two first wives survived, and they divorced, and then Kathleen Savio, he's being charged for that. And Stacey Peterson is missing, very suspicious, but he's being charged at first with Kathleen Savio. It sounds like they're being methodical with this case, aren't they, Joe? I mean, they don't want to just charge him with both ladies because one of them they haven't found yet.
Right. Absolutely. And the part of the deliberate pace of this also is the appeals process, though. And I mean, they're in no hurry. He's in custody all this time as well, so they can take as much time as they want. As far as they're concerned, he's locked up already, and he has been for close to 2 years now.
Unbelievable. So the next step is we're waiting to see when the appeal is done, and then maybe a trial will start. It takes so stinking long. What, a year from now or something?
It might be the fall, late fall by the time this gets going. This is really dragging. But like I said, the prosecutors don't care. They have him locked up. His attorneys, you think they have tried to get him sprung while the appeal's going on because it is a prosecution appeal, but they failed, and he's still in jail.
Good. Let him sit there. Take 10 years to have the trial and keep him there. We'll be back. In our final segment today, so we're waiting on the Drew Peterson case. He's been in jail for a year and a half. They're being methodical on it. It sounds like there was a new team that came into being so that it resurrected the Kathleen Savio case, because at first they just assumed it was an accident. They didn't even really investigate it at the time, did they, Joe?
It was worse than not really. It's almost like they closed their eyes to the facts and what they were looking at and said, yeah, it's an accident. How they could possibly come to the conclusion that was an accident. Maybe they would have investigated it and found out that, oh, yeah. But, I mean, at first blush, how they could look at that that death scene and determine immediately that this was an accidental death with all the circumstances. I cannot understand that. I can't believe it. And you still have people at the state police saying they believe it was an accident. It's mind-boggling. I really can't understand it at all.
No. Did any of them get in trouble for doing such hideous work? Forget the hideous work part, but it sounds like a cover-up. Sounds like they just didn't do their work the basic kindergarten work that they should have.
It really doesn't. No one was disciplined. No one's been in trouble for this. No, not at all. And in fact, they're tasked with solving what befell Stacey Peterson, which is troubling in itself. That the same agency that completely screwed up the Savio case is in charge of figuring out what happened to Stacey Peterson.
Well, you know what? At this rate, Joe, they should fire them all and put an Alzheimer's ward in. They do better. They probably do much better. I mean, honest to Pete. I mean, at least you'd have a reason for forgetting everything. Honest to Pete, you can't make this stuff up in a B movie in Japan, can you?
No, you can't. You're absolutely right.
Well, okay. So you're convinced that it's a closed case. It's just a matter of putting the evidence forth in a proper way. You're convinced that he's guilty of wiping out both of them, killing both of them.
Especially after sitting through that hearsay hearing, with all the evidence the prosecution put on, it's hard to think otherwise. It really is.
What is his demeanor when he's in? Does he just appear like a stone face, like a poker face, or does he appear charming or nice or smile or distant?
While he's being confronted with evidence in these two cases, it depends on who the witness is. He can stare cold if it's someone he doesn't like. He can smirk if he wants to show disdain. I mean, in court I see him, and we pass time like, hey, how you doing, Drew? How you doing, Joe? But I mean, yeah, I mean, he's still, if the judge isn't around, he'll tell jokes and he'll try to. Do
you think he's worried, or do you think he's cocky and thinking he's getting off?
He's got to be worried, and he's got to. This is an easy time he's doing either. It's a county jail, and he's by himself. He's essentially in segregation. I mean, this isn't time that's easy. He's not. He needs to be around other people, and he's not.
It's not country club time for him.
No, and it's not like he's doing hard labor, but he's not doing anything. He doesn't get to go outside. He doesn't have yard time. He doesn't get to play cards with the other inmates. He's by himself in a cell, and he might get to watch a little TV. That's about it.